Professor Homa, back with part 4 of our colorize, and we're going to be doing the siding here. And I can see I missed some stuff here on the tree. That's okay. I would have to go back and do that. And actually, just to review that, if I went back to tree bushes and I did select load selection and I loaded the tree alpha, I could get that stuff in there that I missed. Okay. And actually, that's a good thing that happened, because I actually want to keep this selection active. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the red siding layer. I'm going to make sure that's my target layer, because I'm going to paint with red. And I only have to have this active for just this part of it. This stuff here, I don't need anything active. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in here and just paint on my red siding layer. And you can see what happened here. It's not painting anything, and it even made a little red in the tree. What did I forget to do? Well, remember, this tree alpha is actually allowing you to paint on the tree. And the reason it actually started letting me paint, because we actually have red siding below tree bushes. So tree bushes it'll make it black, and then it'll put that overlay on. So it only caught a little piece here, which I should probably erase. So if you needed to erase anything, I'll just erase that little bit of red that got in here. And the one thing I wanted to show you is working on red siding. This is being protected right now. To switch that, I can, with this selection active, I can just go select and do inverse. And what it's going to do now, it's going to protect the tree and allow me to paint the siding. So I'm going to make my, well, I think I'm on my eraser right now, but I'm going to go back to my paintbrush and just paint. And now I can paint the siding of that without actually painting the trees. And I get all those areas where I think they're siding, and it's hard to see. And that's probably all I need. I think that's all I need that for. I don't need that active for anything else. So I could do Command D, and then I could continue and do things that, like I said, down here, I could click and hold shift, and I could do that straight. Now I don't want to go over the leaves. I'll go to about here and then maybe get a small. And remember, if you go over any of this stuff, you could just erase it. And I'm going to do a smaller brush here, and I'll zoom in to this area over here. I'll go back out now, and you can see all these areas of the barn, or not of the barn, of the covered bridge. There's a lot of straight lines here, so that's where you can basically make your brush kind of at like an in-between size. And you know, I don't know if that's red or not. I think this is red up here, but this stuff is wood under here. This is all wood color. This might be red. Even that little overlap, they may have that painted red. I don't even know for sure. So you could go up here and click there and then hold shift and go down there. Now, if you got over that part, you can erase any of that stuff, because you can see it got in some of the wood parts. So you can always just go with your eraser and then do the same thing with your eraser. Click and hold shift and just erase some of that with your eraser. So in some cases, that might be easier to kind of do the straight, paint sloppy and then use your eraser to get straight lines. So just make sure you go back here and remember, any of these colors that aren't right, or we don't like, or we want to experiment with, that you can just go into your effects palette. You could just double click here. If you didn't like the color of the red siding, go in here, go to your color overlay, and maybe, and the red's a little tough with the overlay. You might just like have to desaturate it a little to make it look more realistic. And if you think it looks kind of pinky, it actually does when the sun's on it. It does look kind of pink. You almost have to wait until you see some of the other colors with it. And notice that it affects everything you already did, so you don't have to go back and repaint anything. You just have to worry about adjusting your brush size. We're using a hard brush for most of it. Even the stop sign could probably be, red, because it's a red stop sign. And notice that it doesn't make white stuff pinky. It keeps white white. So any of that stuff, the wood part we're going to do with a real light color, a real light off-white color. Same thing with the stone. Same thing with the water part down here. The water part I'll paint with kind of a green. Let me just see. I'll just go on the water layer. I think I made a water layer, I believe. There's my water layer, and I'll make a small brush if you want to check out your water. Now, I didn't do my grass yet, but I made the water kind of like kind of gross kind of green color, but that's probably how it looks. And there, I might even use the stone color on this little area of sand. And you could erase some parts in here, or you can go over some parts. You know, you might have to tweak some of this with the bush, but you know, at full size, you may not notice that too much, you know, or you may want to go in there with a brush and tweak it up. But actually that watercolor may look like water next to the grass. Like if I go and do my grass, and I didn't do my grass yet, but you know, this is where the grass ends up. You know, and my grass is probably a little too green right now, but that's where that water will probably look pretty realistic. So by the time I get my red, my sky, my stone color over here, my wood color, I finish off all my reds, you know, this is kind of what we're getting to. So I don't have to go through and do all this. Now I didn't do the red up here or the red down here very well, and you know, I put some grass behind there. I did some stone color and some wood color. I did this with the wood off white. You know, some of this you could try going zooming in and getting a little nicer, not, but it's a nice kind of look. And what's nice is to take an old photo, maybe you have an old family photo, or you know, from your grandparents or something, that you can kind of colorize and make it into something really nice. But just to review of what we're doing in here, the things that we're reviewing is we're making color layers. We're making layers individually, so we could just do parts of it, and we're changing the blending mode to color. And so that we don't have to keep changing our color when we're painting, we actually applied a color overlay effect. We're just painting in black, so that means we never have to change our paint color other than the color overlay effect. And that we go into color overlay, we change our color here by clicking on it. More desaturated is kind of down to the left this way. Although if you make it real dark, it doesn't mean it's going to make it darker, because the dark is determined by the highlights or the shadows that come through the original grayscale. And another thing that you can do is you can go and adjust the opacity. So if you want to let more of the gray of the grass show through, you could always just adjust the opacity up here and turn it down a little bit. And that'll give the same effect of desaturating it. So it'll desaturate that because you'll be seeing more of the original background through your color layer that you're working. You're just turning down your color layer a little bit. So what you're getting to as a finished product is going to be this. So I don't have to demonstrate anymore. I'll just let you kind of work with it and let you experiment a little bit. You know, the more detail you put in, the better it'll probably look. But you know, one of the things that we worked on with this, in addition to doing the way the layers, was working in our channels by just duplicating an existing channel. We named it whatever one we're going to work on, like sky, and then just adjusting the levels to make it really high contrast. And then we also made a separate one here that we inverted. And at any time when you're working, I'll go back here, at any time when you're working on something, whatever it is, you could always load, by load selection, you could always load one of those, whatever it is. The tree alpha, you know, there's the tree alpha, which lets you paint on the tree. If you wanted to paint something that wasn't the tree, even if I wanted to paint behind the bush here, if I wanted to go back here and paint behind the bush or whatever that is, I could inverse it, you know, and maybe I want to paint with the stone color behind here. You know, behind here, I could get that stone color. There I can go over there and kind of get that stone color. Now there's some areas of light green that I have to fix, but I could kind of get that basic stone color, you know, behind my bush here, you know, and that way I'm not affecting my bush at all. So you could keep using these masks, these alpha channels again and again, and just as temporary selection. So they're kind of a cool tool, and they're not just used for stuff like this. I don't want you to think it's just for colorizing. It's anytime you need a complex mask, whether it's a tree or somebody's hair or any detailed kind of element where you need to maybe mask out and do something to the background, you could always invoke this kind of channel by you're basically using the grayscale image to kind of make a complex mask instead of creating one on your own, which is hard. And you can go in and edit it. Let me turn off the RGB. We went in here and edited it to make it better. So we could have made a really nice channel for any areas that were really detailed, but you know, I could have went in here a little bit more and tweaked the bushes area a little, but I didn't bother with that. People don't even know this palette is here, but there's a lot of power behind it in taking these grayscale channels and using them to make selections. Okay, so and just make sure that you put your RGB back on to go back here. So this is my started version. This is kind of my semi-finished version that's here, and I'll let you kind of have fun with it. And there's even other images in that folder. There's an old image to work with in there, but just for now, work on this one and put it in your Dropbox.